Hello, BookTube. Well, I don't often get responses to individual videos like the one I got yesterday to this renewed library tour. So I guess we'll be doing a library tour of the little book room here. I've got a little room, the smallest room but one. Certainly the smallest space that you would use for a bedroom. It's still too big. There's still too much floor space in here. But I have filled this little room floor to ceiling with bookcases. Almost every available inch. I've left the window free, but otherwise almost every available inch of wall space is covered from floor to ceiling. There are no bookcases extending out into the room, but this is at almost maximum capacity. And I thought a library tour of this space might not be so Sisyphean, so pointless, as a library tour of the rest of Hyde Cottage might be, where the books are constantly changing, where there's a much more of a churn. It takes a lot for a book to get into this room, and it therefore takes a lot for a book to get out of this room. So we're going to go on with another shelf here. We're going to do one more shelf here. So we've got Transwise books. We didn't have that with the first shelf, but that's where you've got a shelf of books, and then I stick books on top. And we're going to deal with the Transwise books first, so that we're not negotiating here. And the Franzwise book here is Kafka's Diaries, the old shocking edition of Kafka's Diaries, translated by Joseph Kresch, Martin Greenberg, in cooperation with Hannah Arendt. And Schocken has since done a new translation of Kafka's Diaries, which we will get to. It also is in this room. This is the old trade paperback, and I read these first in this English translation, and they are fascinating. And naturally, I went back to this when the new Kafka's Diaries came out. So I have both of them in here, and maybe tellingly, I have very little other Kafka in here. I think I have one copy of the Metamorphoses, but otherwise very little. Okay, so that is the Transwise books. Then we'll do the books on the shelf, starting with Robert Harris's novel Pompeii, an absolutely terrific historical novel, just terrific. I have all sorts of Pompeii-related clippings in here. This, its most notable literary antecedent is The Last Days of Pompeii by Bulwer Lytton, which is widely regarded as the worst novel written in the 19th century. And this is an entirely different approach. It's not meant to be, it's not meant to make any moral points about how, the people were so decadent that they basically had it coming. It's not meant to do any of that. And Harris makes some very canny narrative decisions in here, one of which I did not agree with when I first read the book. He starts every chapter off not with anything, epigraphs from ancient Roman writers or anything like that, but with hydrological surveys, with modern seismographical information about eruptions and what they do. And I thought, well, that's going to pull the reader out of the story. But no, it is meant to inform the reader on the solid assumption that the reader will not know a lot of that. And the other decision that he makes that's also really good is to make his main character as close as the era got to an expert. He's a waterman. He's a hydrologist. He's an engineer in charge of Rome's extensive aqueduct network, which was the first thing that was disrupted by the earthquakes that presaged the eruption of Vesuvius. So when he's called onto the scene to the Bay of Naples, he doesn't, of course, have any idea that he's dealing with a coming eruption. He thinks he's dealing with either a natural breakage or some sort of sabotage in water systems that are all important. They absolutely cannot go down. I love it. In fact, I'm due for a reread. So this next one, the next thing here on the shelf is really skinny. Oh, oh goodness gracious. Okay. All right. Well, we've seen this before. Okay. This is a little pamphlet called Belisarius by Steve Donahue. Hero, general, man. Needless to say, since I've been saying for years on this channel that my talents at titling things are free and yours for the asking, needless to say, I did not title this. I was working at a retail bookstore, and one of my young coworkers at the time was taking a publishing course, and their next task was to pull together a manuscript and make it into a publication. This was largely in the pre-internet days, so it was a bigger deal than it might sound. And it would get an ISBN and everything. And she looked around her at the bookstore and thought, oh, I bet Steve has something. And I did, of course. This is the first chapter, one version of the first chapter of the only historical novel I have ever written in my life that has not finished. It will not finish. It stays open like a suppurating wound. That book is called Belisarius, Out in the Dark, Running. And it is about, obviously, the Emperor Justinian's famous general Belisarius. It's a novel about the whole of his life that he is remembering as he jogs around the circuit of a camp on one military expedition, hence the title. He starts off in the dark of night and arrives back where he started just as dawn is coming up on the new day of warfare. My coworker only wanted the first chapter and only wanted it for this purpose. She did not edit it or touch it in any way. So I have the first chapter of Belisarius, Out in the Dark, Running, as a kind of quasi-book. So of course it's going to be in here. Okay, then we have a Penguin trade paperback of Away Offshore. This is Nathaniel Philbrick's book on Nantucket, which is a little island off the coast of Massachusetts. Nathaniel Philbrick, of course, is famous as the author of In the Heart of the Sea, about the Essex whale ship being attacked by a whale and sunk, stove by a whale. But this is bits and pieces, history, and also folklore of Nantucket, which Philbrick fell in love with. I can attest personally, it is very easy to fall in love with Nantucket. That is very easy to do. It's a long way off. It's a lot farther off the coast than, for instance, Martha's Vineyard. You know that you're out in the middle of nowhere when you're there. Maybe you know it less now. I haven't been to Nantucket in a long time. Maybe you know it less now than you once did. Once upon a time, visiting Nantucket was a big deal. And wintering, staying over on Nantucket when the whole island closes and the ferry shuts down, took a particular kind of hardiness that I'm pleased to say I had. Okay, then we have a novel. This is by Diane Highbridge. This is called A Much Younger Man. An odd shape for a novel. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell. We'll press Franz Kafka up against A Much Younger Man. I'm sure that's never happened before. See, you might be able to tell if you do that this is a little wider than a normal trade paperback. And it's exactly what, I got this when it first came out. When did you first came out? I'm going to say the mid-90s, 1998. And I thought I was in for just a soft-core women's lit romance, but this is actually really good. It's actually far, far more than the easy formula that the title indicates. It's about a woman falling in love with a man who's young enough to be her teenage son, her early 20s son. And it's not a crisis on her part, and it's not a compensation for some failed affair elsewhere, and it's also not fake on both their parts. It's actually real. And the author is just saying, what would happen if that happened? What would happen in their lives with their of-age friends? What would happen? It's beautifully done. I thought it was beautifully done. Okay, then we have the Center for Civilization series. I really like. This is University of Oklahoma Press. They did a series of little hardcovers called The Centers of Civilization. So Florence at the time of Dante, Athens at the time of Pericles. And they did one called Boston in the Age of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, by Walter Muir Whitehill, who was a wonderful, wonderful guy, and forever and ever was the heart and soul of a library in Boston called the Boston Athenaeum. I really, really liked this book. I have a lot of the Centers for Civilization books, but this is the only one I would even dream about having in here. I like it not only as a Boston book, but as a Kennedy book. Okay, then we have a trade paperback of Nick Pyensen's book, Spying on Whales. I got this when it first came out. I was already back in the reviewing game, 2018. Really liked it. I was really impressed by it. Of course, it takes as its guiding spirit the fact that all we can do is spy on whales. We can't really do much. We can't look at 90% of their lives. But given that, I loved it. I loved how it was done. It's probably my favorite book written on whales. I had the hardcover in here in this room forever and ever, and I found this neat little trade paperback, this Orange Spine Penguin trade paperback, and I actually like it more than the hardcover, so I kept it. This next one is really skinny. Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Yes. This is this is James Goldman. This is his play, The Lion in Winter. This is a great play. It is also the fodder for a great movie. The movie version of The Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn is my favorite movie. And the reason I'm laughing is not because this is funny. It's not. It's an extremely bitterly real world story about King Henry II and his wife Eleanor of Aquitaine and his 3 remaining sons and their treason against him. The reason I'm laughing is because I have no idea what this cover is. I had no idea. The minute this came to the bookstore, this edition came to the bookstore where I was working. Oh no, it was earlier than that. 2004, I think, is when I first saw this, when they did this cover design. And I saw it, and I had a copy of The Lion in Winter, and I thought, that has got to be my copy of The Lion in Winter, because that doesn't make any sense at all. There is no combination of characters in the play that will fit this cover. None. There is none. There is a character who is besottedly in love with a beautiful young woman, but he's 50. He's got a decade on the Pope. And there are 2 young people who canoodle, but they're not man and woman. I've spent 2 years on every street in hell. That's odd. I never saw you there. So of course I have it in here. I have that weird cover. Right. Then we have William Service. We have his book Owl. This is a tiny little thing about an owl that he takes into his home, hides on his bookcase. And the owl is small and stout and bossy. And totally changes the nature of the whole family. And it's wonderful. I mean, there's a little cottage industry of floppy bookmark in here. Please tell me that it has owls on it. It does. It has owls on it. This is where I fell asleep. My bookmark for owl has owls in it. There's a little cottage industry of people who take in owls and write books about it. But this is just wonderful. Oh my, such a wonderful book, and poignant as well. It will get to you by the end. Okay, then we have a penguin, another penguin. This is the trade paperback of Aubrey's Brief Lives. This is just a collection of little biographies of people, Ben Jonson, William Shakespeare, Robert Hooke, Thomas Hobbes, that Aubrey assembled, often with the help of the participants. Not always, but often with the help of the participants. He would ask them for help. And he was assiduous and conscientious in his way. So this becomes not only intermittently fascinating reading, but also obviously invaluable as a literary source. And the thing that makes this particular volume even more is Oliver Lawson Dick does the introduction to this. It's huge, and it is a masterpiece of writing on its own. There should never be an edition of Aubrey's Brief Lives from any publisher that doesn't have that scene-setting introduction, which is, how long is it? It's a small booklet on its own, and it's incredible. As a work of historical reconstruction, largely through the writings of the man, it's just incredible. And I've got a Doonesbury bookmark in here. Does anybody remember Doonesbury? I don't know. This was, of course, during the Bush era, when we've got enlisted men and we hear thumpa, thumpa, thumpa because the Air Force One helicopter is coming down to talk with the enlisted men. And one of them says, "I wonder what the old man's going to harangue us about today." And then the commander from the sideline says, "Hold your fire, men." And then the soldier says, "Morale, I'm guessing." Hold your fire, man. Anyway, so Aubrey's Brief Lives is here. We're gonna keep these videos to about 15 minutes thereabouts. We're not gonna let them get out of hand. Then we have by Christopher Harold. This is a biography. It is very, very good. This is an old Charter Books Bobbs Merrill paperback. It's Bobbs Merrill, which was also this from yesterday, But this is different. This has a commissioned cover artwork, an artist who, I wonder if they're named in here. William Thiessen, who did a whole bunch of cover art for murder mysteries that I really like. I could easily see myself collecting William Thiessen. This is Mistress to an Age, The Life of Madame de Staël. That lovely cover. There are many other editions of this book. But this Bob's Merrill paperback is pretty sturdy. This is held up to a few rereadings, and it gets reread because I love this biography. There are almost no biographies in this room, even though it's my favorite kind of reading. I have a whole bookcase, a whole wall for biographies. There are almost none that I want right here in this room. Almost no biographies that actually graduate to that. But this definitely does. Madame de Staël is so fascinating that she can be made interesting even by a bad writer, as I can personally attest since I've read them. But Herod does such a great job picking and choosing from among her. Her life is very difficult to do a biography of. It's not straightforward, and uncompromising, but wonderful. Then we have an anthology. This is edited by Elizabeth Nugent, but it has a whole bunch of other people in it as well. There are a whole bunch of writers and historians and literary critics. This is The Thought and Culture of the English Renaissance. It's a collection of Tudor prose. Nice, big, hefty thing that I got this at the Brattle, I think, last year, which goes to show you that it doesn't always take a long time for a book to come into the little book room. Sometimes, especially once I've read a chunk of it, and I lost myself in this. I didn't just read a chunk of it. I read and reread I spent a whole month with this thing, on and off with other books. And I knew right away that it had to come in here, which is, of course, the goal. The goal of, I guess, the goal of any book shopping. Well, that's unrealistic because this room would be completely full of books. But the goal of any book shopping is that I want everything to come in here. I want to like it enough for it to come in here. And that almost never happens. I go to the Brattle every week. And we'll often come back with a giant pile of books. But I will look at those books. I will coldly assess them and sometimes think there's not a chance that any of you are going to make it into the little book room. I will read you. I will like you. I might write about you. I'll annotate you, but eventually I will release you back into the wild. But, and of course, I know perfectly well that the books in this little book room will also one day be released into the wild. But here, they know they're loved. And I knew that about this thing right away. So, and it's really good to be in the company for this thing of so many good scholars, because a lot of Tudor prose needs that. Okay. All right, we will wrap up with this last one. This is by Rick Bass. I think he has one other book in this room. But this is his book, Coulter. About one dog. That one dog. I would say not that one dog, but that one kind of dog. In Bass's case, it is that one dog. But there's a kind of dog. Dog owners don't like to admit this, even to themselves. You have dogs your whole life. Once you're in the habit of it, you don't break out of it. And sometimes multiple dogs, because you can't say no, can't turn one down. And you love them all. And you make allowances for all of their different personalities and whatnot, all their different quirks. But there are some that come along that are different. They work in amongst you differently. And it's not just a question of them being the nicest or the most obedient or even sane. You never know what it's going to be. You never know what combination it's going to be. And you feel bad about it because all your other dogs you would do anything for. You, of course, would do anything for them. You take them from puppyhood all the way to the end, all the way to that horrible last day. You do that for all of them. But I think those of you who've had dogs, many dogs, will know what I'm talking about. Some of them, it's just different. And that's what this book is really about. It's about one dog, a dog named Coulter, but it's really about that as well, that relationship. And I've never seen it done better. People always ask me, what are your favorite dog books? Do you have a favorite dog book? This is my favorite dog book, even though it's bitter and often dark. And some people on the surface might not expect it to be my favorite dog book because it's about a hunting dog who's used for hunting. Nevertheless, I go where the prose is. So we started off with Wales, we went to owls, and then we ended with dogs. Okay, so that is it. That is the next shelf on apparently what is now going to be a library tour of the little book room. So we'll just keep on this one bookcase to start with. I'm hoping that the ergonomics allow me tomorrow to sit on a chair instead of on the floor, but we shall see. I will wrap this up, and we will meet again. Thank you, BookTube.